Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel, and today I'm back with another Batman the Animated Series figure from McFarlane Toys. Now, as you're probably very well aware by this point, that this line of figures from McFarlane Toys is actually a repurposing, a reissuing of the DC Collectibles or DC Direct line of Batman the Animated Series figures. That's why they're in the 6-inch scale rather than the 7-inch scale that the DC Multiverse is typically produced in, and these figures have a very different articulation scheme. Now, I happen to personally quite love that original DC Collectibles line of figures. I've covered a great many of them on my channel, so for me this line represents a second chance to plug any gaps that I missed first time around. We're now on to the second wave of classic animated series figures, and up front and centre we have the Joker. And what's quite cool about this release is that it's actually the Joker from the Expressions pack. Now, this is one I happened to miss first time around, and I've always regretted it because I really love the trench-coated version of the Joker in the animated series. So I'm gutted that I didn't get him first time, but I now have a second chance to pick him up. But it is worth noting that that original Expressions pack was really cool because it came with many alternate heads for the Joker, obviously having very different expressions, but also some fun accessories as well that you couldn't get any other way. Sadly, they're not replicated here, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's kick off by taking a look at the packaging. And this is one area where McFarlane Toys have actually improved upon the original releases. The packaging is bigger and larger, but the art design is just much more appealing. We have the Batman the Animated Series logo at the bottom of the packaging, we have this rather large window display with the figure and all his various accessories, and we can see of course that this actually also offers a Builder-figure, a character that was never produced in the original DC Collectibles line, and this time for series or wave 2 of these figures it's actually Lockup, which is kinda cool, like I say. If we look at the side panel, we can really see this art style come to life. I love that we have this image here of the Joker still taken from the animated series. We have the Gotham City skyline in the background, and it's just really nicely and attractively produced. You can put this next to other figures in the collection, so you can put these on your shelf, and they look really fun and colourful and interesting. And then finally, on the reverse of the packaging, we can see the other figures that are available in this collection, although we can't see the actual figures themselves, we just see the art prints of those other characters. And of course, we have the large image here of the Builder-figure Lockup, which does look quite cool, but again, it's not a photo of the character, it's actually an image taken from the animated series. So upon opening the figure, I have to say I really like this look. I think the presentation is actually really well handled, and I think it's all in all a pretty nice figure, but I can't help but feel a little bit disappointed in some key areas. And the first thing you're probably going to notice with this figure, if we look at the head sculpt, is that the hat, the Trilby hat there, is actually warped, so it's actually downturned. It's not supposed to be like that, it's supposed to be flat and straight. Mine's clearly been in packaging a little too long, and it's actually warped the hat, which is really disappointing, I got to be honest. Other than that, I do really like this head sculpt. I think it's really brilliantly done. I think the paint apps are really smooth and well applied, and they mirror what we see on screen, so I've got no complaints. You'll also notice there is actually some cell shading. This wasn't present on the original release. This is something that McFarlane are doing, I suppose, to differentiate the line a little bit, and possibly represent a double dip for those who like cell shading. I know this is definitely a split market, some people love it, some people hate it. I actually do like it, but I tend to like it more in small doses. I think what we have here is quite subtle, and I think this works an absolute treat. There's no two ways about it. I love the Joker in the animated series, I love everything about the character, and I really love the art design in his costume, but particularly so with his trench coat, which you'll notice here is actually more of a purple than a sort of grey, which is great. I think that works really well. The coat itself is of a sort of thick rubber, so it actually is malleable at the bottom, which is great. It really will support the articulation, which is really nice to see. And again, if we look at the legs, we can see, you know, some more of that cell shading there is much thicker on the right hand side of the figure, creating two tones for this character. So for me personally, I love this. I think this actually looks really good, pretty faithful to what we see on screen, and just brings the figure to life a little bit more. So if we take a look at the articulation, we'll see that there is a ball joint at the top of the neck there, allowing the head to rotate 360 degrees, and it will also allow him to lean his head left and right a pretty healthy distance, which is really good. He can also nod his head up and down. It's not a huge amount, but it's enough there to make some interesting impressions. Now he's got a ball joint in the shoulder so that arm will lift up and rotate all the way around. There's a pin swivel at the elbow allowing the lower forearm to rotate all the way around and hinge to about 45 degrees. And then there is a pin swivel at the wrist as well. Again, that hand can rotate 360 degrees and it can hinge forwards and backwards. There is a straight swivel at the waist so he can move from side to side. Sadly, there's no other ab crunch or ball joints here to allow any bending motion. There is a rather hideous hinge joint at the leg. Thankfully that is covered by the trench coat for the most part, so it will kick out to the side, it'll also kick forwards, and it will bend to 90 degrees at the knee there. And then finally there's another swivel at the ankle. Accessories wise, aside from the trading card and the arms of lockup, we get an additional 4 pairs of hands, 2 of which are dummy hands, which work pretty well. We saw these in the Expressions pack and on the previous releases. It's just a shame that we don't get anything else that's a little bit more fun and a bit more varied. We have all these various hands that grip, but there's nothing to grip, so it feels a little bit redundant, to be honest. It's a shame we don't have any joke guns or the rubber duck ring or any of the other fun stuff that could have come with this character. As a result, it does mean that we're a little bit limited in terms of what we can do with this figure in terms of dynamic and interesting poses and displays. There's only so much you can do with a bunch of different hands and they all look kind of the same. That being said, it's still a really fun figure, and if we take a look at the scaling, we can see here that this actually scales quite nicely against Batman. He's just a little bit shorter than Batman, and I feel that that's pretty appropriate. So this looks pretty good, and putting them together is actually kind of fun. They'd certainly look the part if nothing else. So then, final thoughts from me. Well, I'm going to give this figure just 3 stars. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with the figure apart from the warping of the hat, and to be fair, that might just be me. But I think that this figure definitely has a few missteps. One is, of course, those accessories. What a shame that we didn't get any extra accessories, given that they haven't really done much else to this figure. It just seems like a bit strange to have all those extra hands and not have anything to put in them. The other thing is, the articulation actually feels a little bit outdated now. I think it was great back in the day, but here it just feels a little bit limiting, and given the fact that we don't have those accessories, it just feels like we're not able to do an awful lot to make this a really dynamic and really fun display. Now, I might be overly critical and quite harsh on this figure because it was one that I was really excited for and really glad to add to my collection, and I have to say that the actual visual of the figure is great. I've got no complaints, and the articulation we do have is really smooth and well applied, and I do really like the cell shading. I think that is definitely a plus, but I kind of feel like McFarlane Toys really need to offer us a little bit something else, a little bit something extra to really sell these figures, and I think they're just missing the mark at the moment. But other than that, a nice addition if you missed this first time around. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video and thank you for watching this long. If you did enjoy it, please do give it a like, it really helps the channel out. And if you're interested in more videos like this, please subscribe. I'll have plenty more content soon.